For the past few months, Crimson Desert has been showing up everywhere in the gaming community. Every time a new gameplay clip appears, people immediately start talking about it, the combat, the scale of the world, the crazy physics moments, and with the game now just days away from release, the hype around it is pretty hard to ignore. But the interesting thing about Crimson Desert isn't just that it looks impressive, it's that people are still trying to figure out what kind of game it actually is, because depending on the trailer you watch, it almost feels like a completely different game each time. Sometimes it looks like a cinematic action RPG. Sometimes it looks like a sandbox full of physics interactions. And sometimes it almost feels like a large-scale battle simulator, and that's part of what makes the game so intriguing. The developers behind it, Pearl Abyss, are best known for Black Desert Online, which was a massively multiplayer game focused heavily on combat systems and large open environments. But Crimson Desert seems to be trying something very different. Instead of an MMO, the focus now appears to be on a story-driven open-world adventure, following a mercenary named Cliff in a continent called Pywall. And from the footage shown so far, the game world itself looks incredibly ambitious. Large cities, mountains, forests, battlefields, all connected into what appears to be a seamless, open world. But visuals alone aren't what caught people's attention. It's the way the game moves. Combat in Crimson Desert doesn't look like the typical RPG system where you just lock onto enemies and repeat the same attacks. Instead, the gameplay clips show characters grabbing enemies, throwing them, jumping onto structures mid-fight, and even using parts of the environment during combat. At times it almost looks chaotic, but in a way that feels very dynamic, and that's something a lot of modern open-world games struggle with. Many large RPGs create huge worlds, but the actual moment-to-moment gameplay can sometimes feel repetitive. Crimson Desert seems like it's trying to make combat feel more physical and unpredictable. Another interesting detail that people have been pointing out is the technology behind the game itself. Unlike many modern titles that rely on engines like Unreal, Pearl Abyss built their own proprietary engine specifically for this project. And from the gameplay footage shown so far, that engine seems to be doing a lot of heavy lifting. Large environments load seamlessly, physics interactions happen in real time, and the game appears to handle a surprising amount of action on screen, without obvious slowdowns. Even the team at Digital Foundry, who specialize in breaking down game technology, have mentioned how impressive the footage looks from a technical standpoint. Of course, trailers don't always reflect final performance, but if the optimization holds up in the final release, Crimson Desert could end up being a really interesting example of what studios can do when they build technology specifically around the game they want to make. But that ambition also raises an interesting question. Because when a game tries to do this, many things at once, it becomes much harder to balance everything. A massive, open world, cinematic storytelling, complex combat systems, large-scale battles. Each of those elements alone is difficult to get right. Trying to combine them all into one game is a huge challenge, and that's probably why Crimson Desert feels so fascinating right now. Not because we know exactly what it will be, but because it's still a bit of a mystery. The trailers show moments that look incredible, giant boss fights, collapsing structures, large armies clashing on battlefields. But trailers always show the best possible version of a game. The real question is how all of those systems actually work together once players are free to explore the world themselves. Sometimes games that look overwhelming in trailers end up being surprisingly shallow, but sometimes they end up becoming something really special. Right now, Crimson Desert sits somewhere in between those possibilities. It could become one of the most memorable open-world RPGs in years, or it could simply be a very ambitious experiment that doesn't fully come together. And with the release now just around the corner, we probably won't have to wait much longer to find out. But one thing is certain, whether it ends up being amazing or disappointing, Crimson Desert has already done something that very few upcoming games manage to do. It's made people genuinely curious about what they're about to play. And honestly, that alone makes it one of the most interesting releases to watch this year.